So I said good morning or good afternoon. I see quite a number of people obviously joining from the Asian region. So you probably already had lunch. So welcome and good morning. If we go to the next slide, Olga, please, thank you. We have prepared a number of topics for you where we will start with explaining a little bit why we think this webinar is relevant and why we have prepared this webinar, and then go through the actual features of this new technical specification for the remote SIM provisioning, and then talk about what does it mean actually. So what are the nature of the features? What do we expect in terms of timelines when things materialize, not just in terms of products, but also in terms of certification, certified products, and we'll analyze this all a little bit based on our experience with how this happens previously, before we then summarize and have a little bit of discussion. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So before we actually start, please let us introduce ourselves a little bit, and please let's start with my colleague Olga.
Hi everyone, my name is Olga Kietla. I work in Comprion since 10 years, or even more than 10 years, and have more than 15 years of experience in the smart card area. So yes, and my part is a special standardization work, so I'm working in the GSMA groups defining this RSP specification since very beginning. My background is cryptography, so I hope you will enjoy our webinar.
Thanks, Olga. And yeah, I myself, Markus Dormans, I'm with Comprion not that long, roughly for 1.5 years now. I'm doing a mixture of things from innovation, product management, business development. And before joining Comprion, I was roughly 8 years with GSMA, also a little bit involved in this eSIM remote SIM provisioning stuff. And before these 8 years with GSMA, I was working for Deutsche Telekom, so one of the big operators here in Germany, for quite a number of years. But you should also understand which company we are with. If we go to the next slide, so very briefly, Comprion is a specialist providing test solutions for the connected world. So we are a company located in Paderborn in central Germany. And we are providing test solutions, test tools, test services for mobile devices. So when it's about mobile device conformance testing, GCF, PTCRB conformance testing, we provide the test tools, the certified solutions. We provide also test tools and test solutions for contactless communication, so everything which is based on NFC, for example. And of course, one focus areas we're working on is everything related to the SIM card and the eSIM nowadays and remote SIM provisioning. And that's why also we are running this seminar this morning. Right, let's go to the next slide. Thanks. So why this seminar? So we think that this is just really important and relevant stuff for many people and for many companies. So the mobile industry and the GSMA as its trade association has been working on remote SIM provisioning for quite a number of years. And it's not the first version of the specification, but we run through a sequence of specifications already. And typically each specification is published in 3 parts. The first one is what is called the requirements and the architecture part. The second one is then the detailed technical specification of all the interfaces. And the third part is then everything related to testing. So for this latest version of the remote SIM provisioning specification for consumer devices, which is version 3, just recently, the first part, the requirements and the architecture part, has been published. But this is definitely enough to talk about the feature set, to talk about what it means for product and for the industry. So we don't need to wait for the details of the technical specification. But we can talk about this already now, and all the other parts of the specification will come a little bit later, and we will also talk about this in a minute. If we can go to the rest of the content, Olga, thank you. So we think that we are well positioned to discuss all this because Compron is part of all these standardization working groups, in particular the eSIM working group in the GSMA. So we are very close to all the discussions there. We have followed and even contributed to all what has happened there in the past months and years. So that's why we think we, of course, know the facts, but also we have a little bit understanding of the dynamics of the discussions in the working group, which tells a lot about what's probably going to happen in terms of when it materializes in the market. And of course, this specification and the feature set will impact what operators, what providers of EOICCs and of the remote SIM provisioning backend services will do and probably will need to do in terms of following the specification. So that's why for all of you, for your product and for your business, it's relevant to know what's coming, and we think it's relevant to know as early as possible. So that's why we run this webinar today. A little bit of housekeeping before we start with the content. So questions, of course, are always welcome. What we would propose to do is that you type in your questions in this GoToWebinar window. We will try to pick up all the questions towards then the end of this webinar. Also, towards the end, we will have a chance then to unmute some of you and to discuss some questions interactively, if this makes sense. But please don't wait for the end of the webinar. Type in your questions now. We will look at this and, as said, to do our best to answer all the questions during the webinar. Also, please stay tuned. We will have a couple of polls. We're interested also in your perspective on a couple of things. I will not provide more details. That will come during the presentation. Okay, then we should be well prepared to go into the content. So I hand over to Olga, who is running you through all the content.
Okay, thank you, Markus. So let's dive deeper into the specification. Let's see what is in the version 3 of the consumer devices specification. Yes, there are plenty of new features like remote profile management, enterprise, multiple enabled profiles, device change, new PKI infrastructure, APDU API, LPA API, and then multiple root DS, SMDS push service, device information code, LPA proxy, and EUSCC OS update interface, or even some other features which are small or less relevant from our perspective. So let's take a look on these features in detail. So despite the classical local profile management, or what you know as a user initiated profile download, so where you can just press a button and start the profile download, enable the profile, disable it, and yes, maybe delete this. It is now possible to have a remote profile management. So this is the case when the profile owner, typically the operator or MVNO, can manage the profile from remote. So it can the profile now can be downloaded, not download, but enabled, disabled, deleted. The update metadata of the profile can be performed by the operator. So from remote, using the infrastructure of the remote SIM provisioning. So we'll take a look later on the architecture. So the profiles can be managed remotely. So the next feature is the enterprise feature. So let's take a look. What is the enterprise? Enterprise is a business organization or government entity that subscribes to mobile services to be used for activities of this enterprise. So it can be their company, for example, so which offers mobile phones for its for their workers, and for sure, so this company wants to manage this mobiles in a specific way. Yes, and there is a big advantage together with this both features. So it was seen as a biggest advantage is the security and remote update of large volumes of devices. This was the study by the GSMA, so what the enterprises mentioned, which is quite important for them. So alternatively, there are some other use cases like classical ordering and provisioning. So the subscriptions can be purchased in bulk or individually from the enterprise and provided to the workforce devices. Then the subscriptions can be changed. So for example, the service provider may change the subscription, but you need the approval from the enterprise. The global roaming case, this is also quite important. So you probably know some stories when one of your colleagues went somewhere and this colleague had to decide which service to take, and it was a bad decision due to the roaming and things like this. So now it can be regulated by the enterprise. And yes, the remote management, deactivation of subscription can be done by the enterprise, or even on your own device. There can be a profile which belongs to the enterprise, and then it can be better regulated. So this is a big advantage together. And yes, there are some other features like device change. You remember this case when you have this small piece of plastic and you have to move it from one phone to another phone when you change your mobile or get your new phone. So now it's possible. So if you have the new mobile phone, to move the profile, so this is called the device change, the profile will be moved to your new mobile phone. So another feature is also compared to what we know from the SIM card world. This is the case when multiple profiles can be enabled at the same time. So previously in the old versions of the specification, it was not possible to have multiple profiles enabled. So it was only one possible. So now it can be 2 or even more. Another feature is the new PKI infrastructure. This is an example on how it is solved for the SMDP Plus in the version 2. And so we have the GSMA CI as a root CA issuing the certificates for the SMDP Plus. And it goes directly to the SMDP Plus. Now it's possible to have the sub-CAs. So GSMA CI would issue certificates only for the sub-CA, and then the sub-CA would issue certificates for the particular SMDP Plus. Alternative is the sub-CA based on or belonging to the GSMA CI. So there are many ways possible, and actually the same is possible for the EUM and for the SMDS. Yes, and another additional feature of this new PKI infrastructure is that the root public CA is possible for the TLS, which is quite helpful. So then you don't have to use the specific GSMA CI service. So you can do it in the classical way with your devices, verifying the TLS using the public CA. Yes. Another feature is the APDU API or PCMP LPA proxy, so it's all together. So yes, this is just an alternative way to update contents of an installed profile without using the OTA. So you probably are well familiar with OTA, so now it's an alternative there. So there's a specific platform for this defined, the Profile Content Management Platform. Yes, and then there is a role inside of the LPA on the device, which is called LPR. So this is for the LPA proxy. This is the role that establish a profile content management session. And then we have the API itself. This is actually an API which can use the authorized applications to send APDUs to the enabled profile. So, for example, if you're familiar with OM API, so this can be one of the solutions. So this particular part is reusing what is defined by global platform, or it can be also another, so it's more globally definition. So yes, in the use case that it's possible to transfer, so the personalize and perform the integration of third-party applications in the profile. Yes, let's take a look on the architecture. So how it, what are the changes? So this is a simplified architecture from the version 2 of the remote SIM provisioning for consumer devices. Yes, this is just to see how it was before. And so when we take a look, so now we have more components defined, and we have additional features using the old components. So these are the new components. So you can see already here, so what is mentioned, the PCMP talking to the LPR. So there are additional interfaces for this. The device application talking to the LPR. And then this goes to the enabled profile. So then we have the additional feature of the EUSSC OS manager. So yes, for example, so this EUSSC update can be done here by the OEM. And we have this enterprise as an entity inside of the architecture and the mobile service provider. So this is what you know probably from the M2M architecture, where so it was later on in the later versions of the M2M specifications. Now it is going more towards this this architecture. Okay. So there are some additional features as well. So where we have the so-called proprietary solutions. So these features are defined, yes, more as an indicator, so that these features are present, but the way how it is performed and how it is implemented is not defined because for many reasons. Let's take a look. So we have, for example, multiple root DS. This is the ability to configure multiple root DS in the EUSSC. As you remember, so previously it was only one root DS, which was belonging to the GSMA, so possible, and was pre-configured. Now it's possible to have multiple root DS. The SMDS push service, also a quite helpful feature, so there where we have the interface to receive push notifications for the end user to be informed about the outstanding profile download. So it means so the end user can now know and not always have to check. So if there is a possible profile download, so now it's will receive the push notifications if this feature is implemented. So now I'm saying so if, because actually to be on the next slide, so all features are optional. So the LPA API, this is the Pondo to the APDO API, which allows specific applications to talk to their profile. So this mechanism is permitting a device application to manage profiles within the EUSSC. But yes, it is not further defined. And the EUSSC update interface. So yes, you probably know the yes, one of the possible implementations, the SSP. So it's quite complex, but if it's implemented, it can be quite useful. It's quite interesting to see this later on. So, but yes, for sure, it's also proprietary. So the indicator is there so that this is possible. So let's take a look. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about these features? And yes, we have some polls prepared. So it's I don't see who voted in this polls, but yes, it would be quite helpful if we will have some opinions from you. So let me share this first poll. So with this first question. So you can press it now on your screen. So you have this poll there, and then you can select some of the options, what you think will be the next possible feature, so which will be implemented. Yes, and I will share the results with you. So it's for everyone, not for only for us. So I will close the poll and place the results. I hope you can see it. Okay, now so you can see, so there are, so yes, the opinion of the group, so it's probably the remote profile management feature, so will be the biggest one or most implemented one. So yes. Okay, so you see it on the screens, so please make yourself an opinion. And I will have a second question for you. Okay, so about the proprietary features, so what do you think would be the implemented? So it's difficult to say, but maybe, yes, do you have some opinions? So please vote. So you can vote now. So you can again select multiple opinions, multiple options, and share the results with you. Quite interesting again. So the LPA APIs, the one which is in the opinion of the group. So who we are here. So we have almost 40 people there. So we decide. So yes. So from the decision of the group, from the industry. So yes. I will hide this and thank you very much for the participation. We'll have another poll later on. So I wanted to share with you some more information about the specifications. Thank you. So yes, the timelines. Actually, what we have right now is the architecture specification. The RSP architecture specification is already published. What is planned is the technical specification, and the group is really working, I don't know, 25 hours a day on the specification. It's the consumer devices specification technical part. So the SGP22 is planned for the end of Q2 to be published. And yes, there will be a test specification, at least this is what is planned. So now the test specification will be split in 3 parts, not like in the version 2, so where we had everything together, all the components. Here we have the, yes, the one part dedicated to the EUSSC. So then we have the second part dedicated to the device, and yes, third part dedicated to the server. This is just because there are plenty of new features, and even the core specification has, I think, twice as much pages as before. So you can imagine how many pages could the test specification have. And so it was just due to these reasons. Yes, let's see, this is just a forecast, so what is planned, but yes, we will see in the future how it will be. One thing I wanted to share with you additionally is that where we tried to create some measurement where we try to analyze just the impact on for some particular features. Yes, we try to analyze this for the remote profile management, for example. Yes, and we have this column. If this feature is optional, as already mentioned, all features are actually optional, but some are mandatory in the way how they are described. Yes, so from the support of the industry, what we see in the group, so this is just our personal opinion, so it's no guarantee for sure. This was decided, actually remote profile management and enterprise features, there were both features why we had this version 3 specification. And initially the plan was to skip the backwards compatibility of the specification and create these features, make them mandatory. But due to this many discussions in the group, and you know probably the history, that was a big yes, political discussion which delayed the specification. Yes, it was decided not to have features which are mandatory. So now we have backwards compatibility assured, and the option, all features are actually optional. Yes, from the impact, so you can see if it is, this is just our guess, or yes, the result of our analysis, but it's our Comprion opinion, not from the GSMA. So how much effort it will take for the particular components for the EOSC device and the RSP server. or the MNO, and the question is, this feature is standardized or proprietary. So you will see, we'll receive the slides, so you can download the slides and the handouts bar. So this is where you can put also the questions down there. So please feel free to download this. I will not go into details of each of this feature. Yes, just for this, maybe for the multiple enabled profiles, this feature came a bit later, but now there is a huge support by the OEMs, and the same for the device change. This is actually quite logical to have these features, because they are coming from what we have right now on the SIM card, and we don't want to miss these features in the future as well. So for the new PKI architecture, so this is mandatory to support this certificate chain for the single components, but the question is how soon you will have the certificates on, or will the participants use the certificates? So therefore, if they're there, so it's mandatory to support this, but if they're not there, so you can still possible to use the old way, which is called original ways of the certificates. Okay. So yes, for the other features as well, some features are smaller, so we don't mention some smaller features as well. So it's difficult to say what will be supported. Yes, for example, some simple features like device information code can, so it's easily to be supported, but it's not a big feature. So just an example for this, where we have just a code. What usually is printed, now it's possible to get some information about the device with a specific service if it's supported, or user interface. Yes, for the OS update, so this feature is huge from the implementation, but it's not clear how much impact it has in general, or how far it will be supported. Okay. So I hand over to Markus, and we'll talk a little bit more about the impact on the business part. So, Markus.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Olga, for giving us all these content facts and these technical facts. So let's take a step back and think about what this all means. My first conclusion when I saw all these features is that the remote SIM provisioning technology in eSIM has now entered a quite mature state, where it's really becoming relevant for products, for business, and for customers. So whereas the previous version of the specification mainly dealt with technical aspects and getting the technology defined and right, so that's all done already with the previous specifications. And now it's more about thinking it through from a business and from a product perspective. To give you some examples, we saw features like the multiple route discovery services and the multiple CAs. From a technical perspective, there's no need for this. Yeah, it works with a single route AS, it works with a single CA, even if it's more simple with a single instance. But now people recognize that eSIM and remote SIM provisioning is really becoming relevant for business and for customers. And now they're waking up and say, hey guys, by the way, I want to minimize dependency on a single entity, or I want also to have a chance to also cover certain rules for business reasons, probably not for technical reasons. So people are waking up and people are recognizing that this is a relevant topic now. But they also think it through from a product perspective, like the enterprise feature. Yeah, this is just for a specific customer group, where then people start to think about, okay, if I want to leverage remote SIM provisioning for this customer group and build specific products, maybe even for a competitive advantage for this target group, what do I need to get this done in the best way? So as said, all this means for me that the topic of eSIM and remote SIM provisioning is mature now, which also fits with the observation, of course, that devices are in market, that remote SIM provisioning is provided by a large number of operators in the meantime. So it's really there. It's not a question anymore if it's coming, and if it's successful, I think it's there. So that's my first conclusion. But maybe Olga, what's your perspective on this?
Yes, I think the features, so they are already quite mature, sure, and many of them will be implemented. Yes, it's a big question. So, what will be at the end the most implemented features? So it's quite interesting to see. Especially for me, I like this idea to have everything in one place, at least with this indication. So what is so this feature is supported. So even if they are proprietary, so yes, so it's good to have some kind of a box, and so then where you can select these particular features. So.
Yeah, let's discuss in particular what does it mean that all the features are optional and that roughly half of the features will not be specified in terms of technology, but that bespoke implementations for various parties will be accepted. So that's, I think, it's interesting. So my interpretation of this is, first of all, and also this is because it's about products and not only technology anymore, is that it's becoming more difficult to agree on what is really important, what might be essential, and what should become mandatory and not. So it seems that there are different opinions. Of course, Olga mentioned from the observations in the working groups that some features have quite a significant support, but it seems that the opinion is not that broad and unique that the working group would have been able to identify a subset of features and declare them as mandatory because everybody thinks it's simply a must-do. That seems not to be the case. On the proprietary features also, coming back to the point that we are in a quite mature status, what we simply need to recognize is that some of the features have already been implemented even before the spec is out. Yeah, multiple enabled profile is something which is already implemented by some parties. The push notification of the end user is also which is implemented already by some parties. So it's already there. And the reason why is that these features are so important that some of the companies didn't want to wait until the specification is done. They simply implemented the feature without any standardization because they thought it's important. And then, of course, it becomes more difficult to agree on a technical specification later on. Yeah, even there are already patents out there. Multi-enabled profile is one of the examples where there's already a patent out there of one of the companies. Even though this is not a feature which is declared as proprietary. So in that area, for example, multi-enabled profile is one of the areas where it will be quite interesting to see the dynamics in the following weeks and months of the technical specification. So what technical specification will survive or will be selected? Yeah, because implementations are already out there. So will it be one which is already out, where there already exists a patent, which doesn't make it easier, but of course it's not a showstopper, or something else? So we will see. That will be interesting. I don't want to speculate about the outcome. I think this is also not possible, but that's of course not so easy. In terms of the proprietary features, it's simply a matter of fact. Some of the features are implemented. You cannot roll back time, and yeah, that's simply how it is. Maybe Olga, I think you're closer to the working group, and I think you have also a quite good opinion on this.
Yes, I think so as well. So that so at least for the moment, so we should not say at least about what would be the detailed technical implementation, because the specification is not complete yet, and also for the reasons because it's not published. So we should probably not speak about the details of the technical solutions. So what is now published is the architecture, and yes, so we can say only our opinion to this topic. Yes, but I fully agree. So that it would be interesting. So what would be the final outcome of this? So let's see.
Right. So there was one question which I see from the audience. If there is anything which is mandatory at all? No, not really. So it's really a bunch of optional features. And probably that brings us to a little bit to the next topic, means when do we see something materializing in the market, and what how will this look like? So if we go to the next page, yeah, thank you. So this picture shows you on the bottom the specifications which have been defined over time and when this happened. So starting from 2.1 in 2017 and up to then 2.4, which was published end of 2021. So also just recently. And at the top, you see the number of certified products according to these specifications. And what you see is 2.1 was, let's say, a first try, and there are not really a lot of certified products according to 2.1. 2.2 was the first specification, which was a serious one in terms of product entering the market, and that was continued with 2.2, the red specification, the specification in red there. And what you also see is that it takes quite some time until you see certified products in the market based on a new specification. And this is also what we think will happen with the version 3 specification. So on the one hand side, we have already products in market which features the proprietary features which are part of version 3. That's already there. But will we, or when will we see really certified version 3 features? We think that will take quite some time, and it's not that's not a quick one. Also, let's talk a little bit about testing and certification based on this, because the characteristic of this new version 3 specification doesn't make it simple for the testing and certification. Certification means you need to have a fully fledged set of test cases defined and implemented and certified by the respective industry bodies. But for the certification, also it means you need to have products, existing products against you can test your test tools and your test benches for the certification. And we have seen that all the features are optional. So what does it mean? Probably it means that it will take quite long until we have a sufficient set of products in the market, which hopefully more or less comprehensively then in total covers all the features, which allows a test vendor like Compron, like us, to implement all the test cases and to validate the test cases and the test tools against the real products in market. So we think that this will take quite a lot of time. And this is not just for testing, but then also, of course, then based on this, on the conformance testing. I want to pick up one question from the audience there, which was then specifically related to the multiple-enabled product profiles, and the question that there are already today multiple solutions, and what is it what we will address with testing. So that's of course difficult. Implementing test solutions for specific proprietary solution of specific vendors, you can imagine that there's not a good business case for this. So I think for us it's important also to understand the next part of the specification, the technical specification, to see what the industry can agree on in terms of a joint technical solution. And this is the one which makes sense for a company like us to implement then the test tools for. Of course, based on project basis, it's always an option to implement test tools for a specific bespoke implementation of a certain feature. But that's up to a dedicated project between somebody like us, Compron, and, for example, a vendor who has interest in this. Other than this, we need to wait what the standardization comes out with. Olga, what do you think will happen in terms of deploying in the market, testing and certification?
Yes, I also agree. So that it's a bit difficult now because of this optionality, and also because of the yes, there is no much interest from the industry to tested in the in the groups and the specific groups and the as a conformance testing. So I think the interest will be more on the private nature. So meaning this particular companies want to test this particular feature. So we see it now in the development of the test specifications. That some particular features are well supported, there is an interest, but for the other features we see less interest. So it will be probably the case that particular features will be requested to be tested, and then the tests for this particular features will be run using this GSMA specifications, first defined in the GSMA specifications, and then tested. Yes, or alternatively, it will be tested in-house. Yes, depending on the particular implementation and on demand from the market.
Yeah, so we are, of course, in contact to all of our industry partners, to the EU ICC manufacturers, to the device manufacturers. We are keen to understand which features are going to be implemented when, because this tells us a little bit if and when there is demand for test solutions for which features. So for us, it's really, it's not just sufficient that there is a technical specification out there because of the fact that everything is optional. We really want and need to understand who is going to implement what and when. And we are really keen to understand this. That's why we are talking quite intensively to our partners. If you have interest or if you have information on this, if you want to talk about this with us, please let us know. We are always more than happy to discuss with everybody. Olga, there was a question regarding 3GPP and testing. Maybe that's something you can say a word about?
Sorry. Let me see the question. 3GPP. Is there any indication of 3GPP coming up with eSIM test specifications? So we are GSMAs always in contact with 3GPP and the ETSI and Global Platform and other standardization bodies. So I'm not sure which part is there. So if you mean, so what kind of features should be tested? If you mean the RSP features, so then it will be natively tested in the at home of the specification at the GSMA, and probably not on the 3GPP. But if you have some particular features which are not related to the eSIM as it is defined by GSMA, so then it can go to the 3GPP. Yes, this far. So actually from the question, so as I said, so some technical parts which are not yet published, so we cannot discuss right now, so but we can come back to you later on. So we will have these questions and we have your email address, so don't worry about this. So, and from my side, I think we should, maybe we have, it can be helpful for some of your questions. So if we have another poll, or maybe if you have a direct questions you want to ask us, so please raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you can ask directly.
Yeah, that would be a perfect point in time. If there's a direct question, please step up, raise your hand.
Alternatively, we can start some polls, and you have 1 more minute or 2 more minutes to think about. So we are now a little bit over that time which was planned for this. And I will start the poll, and you can consider if you have an additional questions. Okay, so the next poll question was this one. So when do you think we'll see the first products on the market? So yes, you see, yes, it's difficult to say, but probably so not before 2023. So yes, I have another question to you. So yes, it's a question where we had some internal discussions about this topic. It would be interesting to see what you think about this. So how comprehensive will the first products be? and share the results with you. Thank you very much for participating in the poll. So yes, I think nobody thinks that almost everything will be supported, so we'll probably have only few key features or only standardized features being supported.
I think that is in line with also what we think, Olga. That of course, based on the fact that all these features are optional, a lot of this is proprietary, we will see quite a lot of fragmentation coming. From a, let's say, technical perspective, if you like technical standards, that's not a good thing. But on the other hand, it's simply a matter of fact, which is product and business driven. And this is what happens if something becomes a little bit more mature and the business interest becomes more dominant. It's just a matter of fact that you see more fragmentation. And that's what's happening exactly right now.
Yes, exactly. So I'll hide the results and go to the, unless you have a question, final question, so then I will go to the summary. So seems not be the case, as I said, so we'll come back to the questions which are already raised or maybe not properly answered. So what was our expectation regarding the adoption of V3? So this is just our opinions, that the different features have different values and might be adopted depending on the benefit, use case, costs, and efforts. But the adoption might be slow and some features might never be implemented. So this is our view on this point. Thank you for sharing with us your expectation, and I say thank you very much for your attention. And please join our next free webinar, so which is coming soon as the IoT specification is published. Yes, so you will also receive some, if you like, you can receive some video from this webinar. Yes, thank you from my side.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your participation. If there are further questions, just drop us an email, or you can find us on LinkedIn, of course. And as you can see there's quite busy times with regard to eSIM and remote SIM provisioning specification. The next specification on the IoT side is coming very, very soon, and we will have a similar webinar and discussion for this IoT spec. And would love to see also many of you in this next webinar on the IoT specification. Thanks a lot for today. Have a good day, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.